Well, with that, we will get started. Thanks to everybody for joining us, both in person and via Zoom, for head coach Brian Schmetzer's Match Day -1 press conference ahead of tomorrow's match versus Portland. It sounds like Coach would like to start off with an opener before we open up the room for questions.
So the other day we were doing Men in Blazers, and our young protege did an excellent job with a veteran. I mean, Roger's seen it all. And the way he slid in and gave him the tip and the thing that we wanted to announce, which was the dropping of the banner, wasn't in the script originally. And Kevin made his case very persuasively to get Roger to ask me the question, and we got the answer we wanted. So congrats.
Okay.
Alrighty, with that, we'll open up the room for questions. Jeremiah, you want to lead us off?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, Timbers are in town here. What is the approach for this game? Do you take any different approach for a Portland home game than you have for any other?
More details. So we did the review of Vancouver first day back in, then we did Portland, then Preki actually did extra film yesterday with just about our attacking movements from previous few games, just to kind of sharpen that knife a little bit. And then today again, full review on Portland, just extra details, extra work. I think the messaging and training a little bit sharper, voices a little bit clearer from the coaches. So yeah, it's a little different.
Brian, real quick, you just got a little closer to the mic just so it gets picked up. Thank you. Alrighty, Nico, go ahead.
Brian, just an update of what you've seen out of Alex Roldan, in terms of his availability and physicality, where he's at with the little...
Listed as questionable, but he was able to train. So, provided there's no setbacks, he should be available.
Are there any updates on like the severity of the Yamar, aside from the timetable?
4 weeks. I already told you. I know you're friends.
But yeah,
so you're worried about him.
Worried about everybody.
Okay.
And of course, this game has so many things that surround it. But emotions can get high, and what's the sense of making sure that the guys play this with a lot of effort, but just hold themselves back.
Intensity, effort, yes, whatever you want to call it, and don't let it divulge into a Miami type situation. I don't think Phil wants that. He's a good guy. I've been listening to his commentary. He understands a rivalry, but we both hope. I hope that it's a soccer match. It's an entertaining, intense. The Vancouver game was intense, so hopefully a game like that unfolds. But maybe the scoreline for us is a little different.
Jackson?
Hey, Brian, maybe the answer to this is one and the same. I'm wondering if you could share your earliest memory of playing the Timbers and then your earliest memory of the Timbers, period.
Yeah, a long time ago, when I was 18, 19 years old, we had, get on a bus at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and travel down to Portland to play their reserve team, and it was some of the older English guys that, weren't in the first team squad, plus a bunch of young Americans, and they had a similar makeup of their squads, and those games were, bloodbaths, fights, no shin guards, they were hard games, because even back then, the proximity of the cities, it was rivalry. We used to do the same thing going up to the Whitecaps. But, those games were hard in the sense that as a young man, I didn't understand everything about being a pro. And, those reserve games that's where people went to prove that you could be on the first team. And so they were hard because all of us on both sides wanted to take a step up. That's my earliest memory. And then you and I were joking with Danny Jackson about Gavin Wilkinson. I remember when Gavin was there and I was coaching the USL days, You know, we used to let Gavin have the ball. We'd kind of open up the field. He'd dribble down, then he'd give the ball away, and we'd try and transition and counterattack against him. So that was another good memory. Bobby Howe, actually, my first assistant, he was assistant coach here in Seattle. He was coaching the Timbers that first year when I took over, and we had a positive result. I think Darren Sawatsky saved the game for me. So kudos to Darren.
There's been a lot of chapters in this rivalry, and I'm wondering if there's a certain time, maybe it's right now, but if there's a certain time in the history of the rivalry where you feel like it's been the most intense and maybe the most chippy on the field.
Man. I don't know. I mean, Zig, God rest your soul, and Caleb had those kind of moments of strife. The coaches, they were aggressive towards each other, and then Gio was a nice guy. I got along with him well. He had my number, so he was always happy. Phil is a nice guy, very accomplished guy, but he didn't seem to be too over the top towards his opponents. I think he's respectful of his opponents. On the field, I remember Ozzy and Chara. Those moments were good moments. Clint doing what Clint does. I always enjoyed those moments. Thank you, Clint. It was always big time there. Freddie Montero had a lot of good games. And Raul, can't forget about Raul, scoring some really critical, important golazos against Portland. So I think overall it's been an intense rivalry from 80s, USL, all throughout history. It's been intense.
Felipe, go ahead.
So, Coach Brian, since Leagues Cup, do you think that the team has recovered the intensity in the playing, or you just said that against Vancouver it was intense, but you think that the team is already there where you want them in terms of intensity?
Well, we're there with as far as intensity is concerned. Even the effort we put into Austin, the Miami game, okay, the home game against Galaxy, we should have had a little more intensity in that game to close that game out for sure. But it's getting there. It's close, but the results have to come. I mean, we're in a results-based business. We have to watch, Portland's right behind us. So the intensity has to be there, but the results are what's, really going to make our life a little bit easier.
We'll go back for a couple more in the room before going to Zoom. Jeremiah, go ahead for your follow-up.
Jordan is coming back. He's getting close to full fitness. Maybe he is full fitness. Danny is having a career year. Osaze has been, shown a lot as well. How do you go about trying to balance the desire to both, to get Jordan fully back, to, keeping Danny hot and still, not getting Osaze dispirited?
Read your article. I mean, it's a complicated situation in some ways, but it's also a simple one. I think Jordan, over his time here, has proven he's our leading goal scorer all time. He deserves a chance to get his spot back from injury. Danny Musovski's had a career year. I love what Danny's done for the club. He's set himself up for, a longer career here in MLS. He's done a great job, and Osaze could be the future. And so I, as a coach, have three options. Because, look, if Jordan starts, he's not doing it, I got Danny. If I need two forwards, and I can bring Osaze. Or if, there's different game situations, home or away. If we play Minnesota, I mean, there's certain things that I have now some flexibility because I have three players who are, having good years. Well, Jordan will be having a good year, we hope.
We'll go to Nico here before hopping over to Zoom. Nico, go ahead.
Brian, obviously, not to get away from the subject, but I did want to ask you on Cristian Roldan getting another call-up with the U.S. national team and, getting that opportunity.
Love it. Love. Except I don't love that he's not going to be here for October 11th. It's deserved. I would say that Cristian, made a good impression in his first camp. I think you read some of Potocino's quotes. He liked Cristian. He liked his attitude on and off the field. I thought Cristian had a really good game, the game he started. Thought he was very influential in that match. Good. good partner, good teammate. So I'm happy for him.
All right, we'll go next to Zoom. Kev, do you need to unmute the computer or anything? Brian, for these, they're having a little bit of trouble on the audio on Zoom, so just make sure you speak right to the camera for these. Paul Tenorio, why don't you go ahead and ask your questions?
And Brian, I have 2 questions.
Yep.
You don't know right off the half one. The Harris about Christian. Have you back in it by Bill you got that he's got another coach and Terry expecting about the Christian. I wonder your perspective on what you think that player but also was back in the it's being a tell perspective be from the loss round how that become new guy in the way and player telling him back up and things well with about and having person that and a lot to that Peter.
Well, I'll go back and talk to you about Cristian Roldan at the University of Washington, because I used to scout some of their training sessions back in the day, and you could tell back then what his training habits were. And so I still remember this. Me and Kurt Schmid were talking about Cristian because he didn't have a good combine, and he was a projected top 5, 10 pick, and he didn't have a good game. And back in the day, you don't have a good game there, your stock drops. We were like we had Garth chasing around the room trying to trade for him because we knew already, Paul. We already knew because we'd seen it. And me and Kurt were finally able to, convince his dad and Garth that we needed to pick Cristian Roldan. And then you get the firsthand view of Cristian in your own environment as a pro. Took him a couple of years to get up to speed, but he could do everything. I mean, he worked hard in training, could play over here, play over here, play over here, and he was durable. He's a good athlete. He jumps well. He's on all of our set pieces, both defensively and offensively. Plays a big role. And he's, for lack of a better term, he's a coach's dream. I love having him on the squad. Now you fast forward to a, environment at the World Cup level, and you look at a guy who doesn't quit, has the right mentality, has had experiences in big games, CONCACAF Champions League, all of the things that he's already got under his belt, all those experiences. Plus, then you add on to that, he's a nice kid who's not afraid to, drive training by saying, hey, let's go. This isn't good enough, because he understands the standard that he wants to get to. And the standard that this club is pretty high. And he doesn't make excuses. So all that's to say that, any coach, that's why Greg brought him on the squad. The last World Cup. I mean, it's just for those reasons. And Cristian makes a lot of people around him better, not just on the grass, but off the grass. But this year, Paul, he's actually earned his minutes, I believe, on the grass. Because his performance in the Club World Cup, playing against some of the best players in the world, he was right there.
So, Paul, thank you. And to follow up on that, speaking with some of the staff members at the U.S. of Pochettino's staff, you talking about how they don't really communicate with players outside of camp, but they put a premium on communicating with the players' clubs and getting to understand players by visiting the club, speaking to their coaches. I know you had Mickey D'Agostino, I believe, was the coach who came up to Seattle for a little bit. I wonder if you could, what was the interactions like with him when he was in Seattle? How did they get to know your players when they were visiting you in the club?
Yeah, Miguel he's a great man. We thoroughly enjoyed listening to some of his stories. He appreciated the thoughts that we were conveying to him about what we did at the club. Because look, people do things different. I do things different than Greg Vanney. I've been a Greg Berhalter supporter. He's done a great job getting Chicago back in the playoffs. I love Bruce. I love Bruce, the way he does things. So all of us have different ways of skinning the cat or winning or being successful. But what I loved about Miguel and what he told us in our coach's room was where they're from in Argentina, this crest, the Argentinian national team, that means everything. And we can kind of sometimes say that here. And I think players say it because they have to, or they score a goal and they point to this. But where they come from in Argentina, that's inside of you. That is something that's not just words, but it's a feeling. It's something that's inside of you. And they were trying to get that, fine-tune that message, because I'm sure Greg and Bruce, when he was a coach, and all the other national team coaches, Jurgen and Bob, I'm sure they all had various ways of saying the same thing, but they really believed that. When you spoke to them, you could just feel the passion that they had about what they were trying to develop with the culture of the club. And so I was drinking the Kool-Aid right away. I have nothing but high hopes for the national team. I think Americans are proud people. I look at the players, and we have a good team. And so my question is, why not? I mean, why can't we do well?
And you
Thank you, Paul. We'll go next on Zoom to Masvida.
Yeah. Hey, Brian. Two quick ones. One a little bit of a softball, one I don't know. Going back to Clint, just you talked about it, about Clint does what he does, and I think Paul was asking from a national team's perspective, but some of those things, passion, what does Clint do?
Well, I think everybody says it before. He tries shit. He tries stuff. But Clint was a competitive guy by nature. Growing up where he grew up, how he grew up, he was always super competitive. And inside the 18-yard box, that showed. And whether it was the national team or one of the big games that Clint played for us, playing against Portland, he was able to rise the occasion. So I think some of that, culture, crosses over between club teams and U.S. teams, for sure.
Making a request to get your club to play a full 90, what do you think is missing? Tactical awareness, and I mean, time in the clock, place on the field, and maybe courage? It's more of a question. Which of those are...
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Number one, we've let in some what I term soft goals. We've given up too many goals too easily to teams. We have to be hard to beat. That's probably number one. The individual mistakes have come from different players, so you can't just remove one guy out of the lineup. You gotta think about the whole thing. And then the message of trying to, when you go up 2-1, like we did against Vancouver, not allow them back into the game, stay on the front foot, all of those things. Yeah, we talk about it all the time. But at the end of the day, it's sports, and sometimes it works. And, we had a really good run in Leagues Cup because everybody was really super focused. So we're trying to, do that in training, do that in film, all the extra work, all the extra details, get them laser focused, and see if that helps.
Next on Zoom, we'll go to Jada Evans. Jada, go ahead.
Thanks for the time, Brian. You've mentioned before about the rotation as far as trying to get Pedro onto the field. Do you feel that you'll be able to, assuming nothing goes wrong this time as far as injuries go, but is this a game that you're trying to, maybe work him on the field?
I'm absolutely trying to get him back because I need to see if his knee is good enough to play, Jada. So yes, I'm very hopeful that we can get Pedro on the field, and he will have, some limits on him, but let's just see. If he's playing well, he'll be able to play more.
And then what you're talking about as far as the soft goals, can you expand a little bit more? What I know it's not specific player, but is there anything that you can really even?
I can tell you. I can give you
a situation.
Yeah, I can give you a couple of examples right away. I mean, Cristian Roldan in Miami gives the ball away. They go down and score. Young Snyder, Brunel does it. They score. The set pieces, that we gave up to Vancouver. You could say, no, that one's kind of a middle ground for me because it was a good ball and a good header. Jackson had just done the same thing to them down there in that game, Jada. But the lapse of concentration in the Galaxy game coming from a throw-in, where we should have taken care of that. Then in the Austin game, the same thing, comes from a throw-in. We're not defending well. Those are some of the things that I consider to be soft goals.
Alrighty, we have time for a few more follow-ups in the room. If anybody has any other questions, Felipe, why don't you close us out?
Just Frank, you were talking about courage, passion. You were talking about how Pochettino and other coaches have tried to teach that to the players. My question to you is, how do you transmit that to the squad? Do you think that those soft goals have been due to the lack of that passion, that motivation, that courage? Or
No, I don't think it's lack of courage or anything like that. I just think we've made mental mistakes. And so courage is a funny word, intensity, commitment. I've talked about this team being very together, a collective. I mean, there's lots of different words that we could use to describe some of the failures that we've had. But, some of those words can also celebrate the success that we've had. I think the team had a good run. Early on in the year, we had to travel and go and CCC, and we had some good moments there. And then beginning of the year, we won some pretty big games. And we're just trying to, again, find some consistency because we haven't had the same lineup in, I don't know, any game this year of two games with the same lineup. So a little bit of consistency, a little bit more intensity, a little bit more concentration, maybe a little bit more passion against Portland. Maybe this is a good game for it, Felipe. So it's a good question. And we'll see if we can get a result.
All righty. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Coach, thanks for your time. Let us know if you have any questions ahead of tomorrow's match, and we'll see you all tomorrow.